WOJB 88.9 FM. This is Native Tuesday. I'm your host, DJ Will, aka Cloudman. Thanks for tuning in. If you're just tuning in,
the uniqueness of the voice that we provide to the community, there's nowhere you're going to get anything like this. You know, sure, there's other media in the U.S. and other native media, but radio is really important, especially when you get in a rural community like this. For a lot of people here, radio is all they have. I mean, there's a lot of dead zones around here. You have no cell service. You definitely have no cable TV. I mean, you might not even have electricity, but you can have a battery or solar powered radio, and people rely on us for, you know, closings, weather information, emergencies, and entertainment, and education, news. It's so vital, especially when you get into the rural communities. That's why I think that there'll always be a place for WOJB. My name's Carl Habeck. I'm General Manager of WOJB Radio, broadcasting from the Courte Reservation in Reserve, Wisconsin, which is a community in the northwestern part of the state. We are a 100,000 watt radio station, and we serve an area approximately 100 miles in diameter. We've been on the air 43 years. We're very proud of what we're doing. We consider ourselves the voice of our tribes, the Courte Band, and I'm happy to be part of it. I've been the general manager since 2021. However, I began my experience. I started as a volunteer with the radio station in 2008, and I was an on-air personality, on-air volunteer DJ. What's going on now with our funding? Regardless, we're here to stay, and this isn't going to stop us. We've got a lot of support of the community. A lot of people appreciate what we do, and you know, you kind of realize that over the years, and you can see it. But now, when things become difficult, you really appreciate the love from not just our local community, but all over the world. Really, I mean, we received donations from virtually around the globe, and people know what we're doing here in northwestern Wisconsin, and they truly appreciate it, and we appreciate their support. You know, we have to absorb that. We have to try to make things better, move on, and you know, it's a constant change. And in our community, virtually anybody is invited to speak if they have something significant to speak. If it's going to be informative and educational, and something that the community should be aware of, then by all means they can come on and say what they want. Well, up here, you know, we a lot of our programming is from National Public Radio, PBS, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, in-house presentations like Honky Tonk Show is very popular. Our Native Tuesday show, powwow music, coverage of our various powwows, our Veterans Powwow, Honor the Earth Powwow, all that would be gone. And actually live people talking on the air. There's other radio stations around here that have actual voices behind a microphone that are actual human beings sitting there as much as we do. It's just everything now is canned and automated, and that's something that would be gone if WOJB was gone, but something to think about. When we first got the news, of course, it was very devastating, and I'm not going to lie, I panicked a little bit and thought, oh no, what are we going to do? This is, you know, easy to calculate is approximately 40% of our funding, and how can we recover this? Because we work so hard now to maintain what we have, and the last thing I wanted to do was cut personnel. and I want our people to, I don't want to cut their wages. I don't want them to lose their jobs. And, all this stuff started going through my head. And then it was immediately, before we even said anything, before we even made a plea to the community, donations started rolling in. Well, for an example, the Greater Milwaukee Foundation, who is typically helping, urban communities, they reached out to us and gave us a phenomenal donation, and that was one of the first ones we got. And I thought, wow, if this is the reaction we're getting, I'm gonna have no worries. And they did. They started to subside, and now, a few months down the road, we've got funding. We received some funding from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I've talked to Native Public Media, who's an organization that represents a lot of tribal radio stations and television stations. They're raising a lot of money on their own, which, it's been pretty much decided that the BA funding will carry us over for this year. Next year, Native Public Media plans to jump on board where they can distribute their funds if they need to be, which will be almost equivalent to what we've lost from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting funding. Otherwise, the BIA has also talked about continuing this indefinitely, where they can provide the $9, $10, $11 million that Native stations need every year to function. There's been a tremendous outflow of support, and I don't know what to say. I write a lot of thank you letters. I talk to a lot of people in person and thank them, and just the and I think that the organizations like yourself that ask these kind of questions, that let people know exactly what we're all about and exactly why there's a need to keep what we have going.
We got about 4 songs left in this punk rock set. We're going to go to MXPX for Let's Ride. We're going to go to Pennywise, the band, not the clown, for Revolution. And then we're going to go to Misha and the Spanks for I Want Fire. Misha and the Spanks were on earlier in the program. An Indigenous band coming to us out of Canada. And then we're going to go to Die Spitz for Pop Punk Anthem and close the set out. Take a listen here on WOJB Native Tuesday. Here is MXPX with Let's Ride.
We can adjust a little bit. We can afford to lose a few $1,000 here and there, but nothing gets cheaper. Our electric bills don't get any cheaper. People's wages, need to be adjusted for cost of living. We're more fortunate than a lot of other stations I'm aware of. There's other stations that are in more rural communities than we are. They have to rely on the BIA funding, and they don't have the ability to really produce a functioning business model that's sustainable, just because of their, the demographic, their area where they live, and they don't have a lot of people that are listening. I mean, there's radio stations in Alaska that serve 300 people, 500 people, but it's a rural community, and that's all they have, and that's what these people rely on for day to day. And they try to do the same thing we do, and they don't have the luxuries that we have, and that kind of worries me and makes me sad. But and that's what I thank the BIA, and I think organizations like Native Public Media that are reaching out and really doing something on a national level that really needs to keep us going and helps keep us united as well. And volunteers are huge. They're a huge part of what goes on here. They make up a lot of our airtime, and they come in and most are a little nervous at first, and train them in on the board and ask them what kind of genre they prefer or what they prefer to do, and they get thrown into the fire. And so that's one thing that like I said, that's one of the reasons why we have to keep on going, because it's so important to the community that I can't imagine, and I'm not alone in this, being without WOJB.
Despite ongoing challenges, Ojibwe Radio continues to move forward with the support of its listeners, volunteers, and community partners. As funding models change and technology evolves, the station's mission remains the same: to inform, connect, and amplify local voices. It's a reminder of the powerful role community radio plays, especially where it's needed most.